Hello everyone, I am Sriwidastuti, one of students from Advanced Educational Technology class. And in this great opportunity, I would like to share my experience in developing learning object during the semester for my final assignment. Through this presentation, I will explain the process how I could come up with the learning object, and the title of my presentation is The Use of Part-of-Speech Word Hunting, Virtual Manipulative for Beginner English Learners to Enrich Vocabulary. And the contents of this presentation would cover two important sections, which are the first is the design process of the module or the learning object, and the second one is how the module would be used. Let us start with the first section, namely is the design process of the module, which in this class we implemented ADDIE model. So in the process of developing the module or the learning object, we went through several stages, starting from the analysis stage, design, development, implementation, and finally evaluation stage. The first one is analysis stage, which this is about problem identification. Why this module is needed? And to answer this question, I think I would start with the issue that I found from my observation and my experience. Vocabulary knowledge and part-of-speech knowledge are very important in learning English because they play an important role in sentence formations. However, many beginners English learners, such as I observed and found in my neighborhoods, my little brothers, and even I experienced myself, have difficulty in learning English due to lack of those skills, which are the vocabulary knowledge and also the understanding of the part-of-speech concept. And this problem may be because of the lack of learning media or tools that the teacher used in teaching the skill, and also a lack of exposure in vocabulary from the learners. And from this issue, I think that we need a solution, such as a tool or a learning object that can help the learners learn better in a more interesting way by providing exposure to practice their vocabulary as well as to help them understanding part of speech concept. And this is why this virtual manipulative part of speech word hunting is emerged. And the target audience for this virtual manipulative is focusing in beginner English learners such as elementary or perhaps early junior high school students. The second one is the design stage, which will discuss about how would the module or this learning object virtual manipulative help the target audience learn. The first thing that we should know is about the purpose of this learning object, which giving a mission to the learners or the users to create vocabulary or words as many as possible according to the particular part of speech that appears on the screen when the learners or the users starting using the learning object. And from that activities, this module have learners to learn actively through the process of making the words by arranging the letters on their own like a jumble letter scheme. Thus, through this module, they can learn holistically about the meaning, the spelling, and also how to categorize that words into the part of speech. And of course, this activity is under monitor of the teachers or instructor around the users or the learners. And this is how the module looks like. And the existing features such as green flag to start the use of the module, the reset button to clear the alphabet after we use the module. There is a blue ball placed for disposal of unused copies of the alphabet. And also we have timer feature here. We can use the timer features if we want to give duration in creating the words. And also some notes, we can click the wizard girl to change the part of speech type. And this is how to use the module for the learners or the user, where the learners or the user can start using the module by clicking the green flag. And like I said before, the mission is to create or form words that belong to the part of speech type which appear on the screen. It could be a verb, adjective, adverb, and etc. And the users and the learners could start create the words from the alphabet by clicking on the letters to copy them and then drag them to form the desired word. And for the copies of the alphabet can be deleted by dragging them into the blue ball. If, for example, the learners or the users have unused copies of alphabet, just drag to the blue ball and the letters will be disappear. And like I said before, the use of this module can be given a time limit too by clicking the timer button. If the timer is used, make sure to complete the mission within the time available. And this is an important note for the rules of the instructor or teacher here. It's needed to control the time if the timer is used, and then also check whether the words that the users or the learners create match the assigned part of speech type. And then after using the module for practice, the alphabet can be cleared through the reset button. The next stage is development stage, where in the class we did a role play in reviewing each other learning object to get feedbacks based on learning object review instrument or LORI. And this is the average result of my expert review LORI from 4 expert persons, that I got 4.25 in content quality, 3.50 in learning goal alignment, feedback and adaptation I got 3.75, motivation I got 3.25, and I got 3.50 in presentation design, 4 in interaction usability, accessibility in 4.25, and the last is standard compliance. I got 3.75. And this is about the general remarks, including the suggestion from the expert. The first expert think that this is a great game for measuring students' capability and understanding part of speech. However, it is suggests that it will be more interesting if it can be added some audio or music. And from the second expert, it is also as a great work when students have their teacher around to check. However, it cannot be done independently. That's why it is suggested to be connected to the dictionary or something so that it could check itself, like the virtual manipulative or the learning object can give a direct feedback to the students. And from the third expert, I found that a little confusion here because it is said that the expert cannot imagine what's going on with the learning object and cannot imagine how the learning object is used later. And hopefully through this presentation, also in the end of this presentation, there is a lesson plan example. It would be answer this question here. And from the last expert, it is said that this learning object is well made and easy to operate, but there is a suggestion for the unlimited letter use. And these are some suggestions that I consider along with the action that I took as a response to the feedback. The first one is add some audio or music, but I refused it because I disagree to add some audio or music because I think it perhaps will disturb the focus of the learners or the user during using the module. Because in this using of module, learners are also expected to interact with the instructor or the teachers. So when there is a music or the video, it could be interfere the communication between the learners and also the instructor. And the second one is connect the learning object to the dictionary. I disagree with it also, and I refuse it because the Scratch does not support the features. Even though the Scratch also support these features, but the development of this module will take a long effort, and that is why I refuse to connect the dictionary to my learning object. And here we can emphasize the instructor role to monitor the students. So the responsibility to guide the students, to define the rules, to check the students' works is all to the instructor. And the last one is option to an unlimited letters use. This suggestion actually is already addressed in my learning object, so we can copy the letter by click the letters in the use of the module. For the next stage is the implementation, and in this stage we gather some target audience to use our module or learning object, and after that the audience will fill in the LOES survey. And this is about the implementation stage of my learning object, that I got 3 target audience, which are 3 beginner English learners in grades 7 and 8 junior high school students. In this case, I couldn't find any elementary school students because in the school near my homes in my area haven't started to teach English yet. So English language for most of the students here are new and something that they haven't learned. And for the process, I'll gather the participants and also ask for their consent. That the consent has been obtained before the participant tried my learning object. From all 3 audience that I have, all the 3 audience give the consent, but 1 audience refused to be documented. And the setting of this implementation is in offline setting, where the target audience come to my house and they use the learning object through my device. And also before they use the learning object, I give them a short introduction about the learning object and also the topic, which is about the vocabulary and also part of speech. Here, why I give them brief explanation and also introduction about the topic, because they still in a beginner's stage in learning English, so concept about part of speech is quite new also for them. And after they try to understand the part of speech concept, I will give them time to use the learning object. After that, finally the audience will fill out the survey. And this is some picture that I took from my audience during the implementation stage, where the first picture there is a participant use the learning object to practice the vocabulary based on pronoun, and the second one is based on a verb. And the next is also there are some clips of video when they try to use the learning objects. The final stage is the evaluation, where it is the discussion of the survey result from the target audience. In this class, we use LOES survey, which is Learning Object Evaluation Survey, that the items were adapted from Kay and Knack paper in 2019. The LOES is known as one survey that has moderate validity and reliability to evaluate learning objects. In the paper, it is stated that 2 studies have been reviewed this survey and offer validity estimate, which are Kay and Knack in 2007A, also Narmi and Chakolat in 2006A. Furthermore, the paper also demonstrated that the reliability estimates around 0.78 until 0.89 for the learning object were concluded as a good numbers, and it is based on Klein in 1999 and Nunnally in 1978. And from the use of this LOEs as a survey, we evaluate our learning object in 3 aspects, which are the learning aspect, quality aspect, and also the engagement aspect. And these are the average value from the survey result of my audience. That the first one is the average of the learning aspect values. Like we can see in the question 1, I got around 4.3 points, and also in the question 2, I got 4. In the question 3, I got 4.3 again, and in the question 4, it showed in 0.4.67, and the last for question 5, I got 4.3 again. And the second one is average value of the quality aspect. I got 1 point in the question 1, 5 points in the question 2 and question 3, and also 4 points in question 4. And this is the last average value of the engagement aspect. I got 3.67 in question 1, 4.67 in question 2 and question 3. And just to recall that the number represent audience answer from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And regarding to the last two questions about anything that they like from the learning object and what they do not like about the learning object. The first one about something that they like, it is the finding. It is written that the learning process is more interesting because they can practice the vocabulary not only from the paper, from writing through the paper. And the second one is helping them learning more easier. And it is said also the feature when we can click the wizard code to switch the part of speech type, and that's fill the need when the students want to practice their part of speech based on their own. And then the third one is the timer features can make students more motivated. And the second one is about the things that they do not like about the learning object is there is no help features in the learning object, and mention about the absence of the instructor will be difficult in the learning process, and about the music. And here, finally, in this slide, we come to the conclusion. From the data findings, in general, it can be concluded that this virtual manipulative part of speech word hunting can help learners in practicing and improving their vocabulary knowledge, as well as helping learners to understand the concept of part of speech. And this is proved by the result of the survey, which most of the average values show positive move to the agree or strongly agree position, even though some questions still have low value, which means that the virtual manipulative still need improvement in that specific area, such as the quality of the features. Also, this is supported by my observation when the audience used the learning object, that they could enjoy the process and could form the words based on the assigned part of speech. Besides that, I also add several notes in the implementation of this virtual manipulative in the learning process, that we should make sure that the device and the internet connection, the availability of the instructor to monitor the learners in using the learning object, and also make sure that the instructor can create interesting and meaningful learning activities. And then here, the next section is how the module will be used in the learning process. And in this section, I will discuss my lesson plan to give an example how the module or the learning object could be used in the learning process in the class. Actually, for me, this learning object could be used and could be implemented to support all the areas of the teaching process in the learning in the classroom, such as to support the warm-up activities or to support the practice activity in the main section, or even to assess the students. But here in my lesson plan, I use this module to support my warm-up activity and also to support the practice section. And here the topic of my lesson plan, I focus the part of speech type in the adjectives, and the estimate grade is for grade 5, and my duration of the lesson is 16 minutes, which the objective of my lesson is at the end of the lesson, students will be able to 1. Comprehend parts of speech, especially adjective, by understanding the meaning and some of the word examples. The second one is identify adjective words from a passage and make sentences from those words. And the third one, improve the ability to collaborate by doing group and peer feedback activities. And for the materials needed in this lesson, such as laptop, learning object, part of speech, word hunting, also the device for the students, PowerPoint, a passage, a short story for me, and a Padlet. In the warm-up activity, this learning object could be implemented to support the activities here, where the teacher could start the class and instruct students to prepare the respective devices to go to the learning object first and start it, then ignore the part of speech that appears on the wizard character first. And after all the students are ready, the teachers ask how the students are and ask how they are feeling right now. And by that, the teachers instructs the students to write down their feelings on the learning object by the existing features, like they can click the letters and then form the words their feeling on the learning object. And the last, the teacher asks students to classify the words they make into the part of speech class by setting the wizard character. And in here we can see that the implementation of this learning objective can be used to support the warm-up activity, where the students could use authentic words which shown that they can improve or practice their vocabulary, and also simultaneously classify them into the part of speech type. In here, in the main activity, this learning object could support the practicing section for the students, where the teacher divides students into groups of 3, and with their own group, the teacher gives students time to read a passage and identify the adjective words in it. Then the teacher asks the students to make the antonym of the words in the learning object, part of speech word hunting, and then to check the result, the teacher assigns students to do peer feedback across the groups, and then finally the teacher would discuss the students' works. And in this implementation, actually the practicing section, the classifying or the identifying of the words adjective done outside the learning object, but the practicing when the students think about the antonym of the words, it is done in the learning object, and this shows that this learning object could be used to support these activities. And then for the assessment, the teacher then assigns students individually to make sentences from the words they have made in the learning object, and this assignment aims to measure students' understanding of adjective words or the vocabulary and how to use them in context. And from this assessment, the teachers could evaluate whether the learning objective of this lesson are achieved or not, and then to evaluate the learning object whether it can help the students learn holistically, including the meaning of the word, the spelling, and also how they categorize the words. And then for the past activities, as usual, the teacher will summarize the learning, and then the teacher asks students to do reflection if there is a time. And we come to the last slides about the conclusion of this process in developing this learning object virtual manipulative part of speech word hunting. And in here I would like to answer two questions from the available question in the Canvas. The first one is, what research question might your project prompt? Because my project or my learning object is focusing on the purpose to help learners enrich the vocabulary. So the first possible research question, perhaps, how does virtual manipulative part of speech word hunting enrich vocabulary knowledge for beginner English learners? And the second one is, to what extent and important are the role of the instructor in the use of virtual manipulative part of speech word hunting for the learners? And this second question come up because this virtual manipulative is different from game, so it is important to do study or research about the role of the instructor here in the virtual manipulative. And then the second question is, what kind of impact might this product have? Personally, this virtual manipulative could contribute to providing a new option for teachers in the use of learning media, and it also benefits students because it provides an interesting yet meaningful learning experience. And this also mentioned by the survey result from some of my target audience. And however, this virtual manipulative is still have discrepancy, where the implementation is still difficult to use if there are limitations in device and internet connection. And yes, that slide close my presentation here. Thank you for your attention and goodbye.